We were in Romania at that time. It must have been in, I don't know, 1920. No, I'm not quite sure. And what the aunt that was there with us, she was much older than I, but we were always very close friends. So she and I had a picture taken. I don't have it, but I remember that. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you know, we separated and we walked and walked. I do remember, and of course my father told me about that too.
So this is when you were leaving.
Then, we left. We had left Russia. I don't know how long ago.
And who had left?
My mother, my father, my kid brother, his parents.
This was Nathan, right?
Nathan, yeah. His parents, my father's parents,
right.
And then my aunt, one of my aunts, and one of my uncles who was that much younger than older than I.
How old were you again?
Well, I don't. No. I was 9 when I came to America.
Oh, okay.
You see, at that time it wasn't USA; it was America when we came here, and then I do remember I walked with my father. No matter where we were, my father always took care of me, and I was very tired, and I said, "Carry me." And he said he's sorry, but he couldn't carry me because, you know, it was just too much. Then after that, I remember this was with my mother's cousin and her husband and 2 boys. They were older than my brother, Nathan, and myself. And we were in one room. We had stayed overnight. We started the day, rather, and stayed till late at night. And then we heard someone was coming, and we were always afraid that it was soldiers or so. So my father went out, and we were not on the 2nd floor, but we were high enough where we couldn't go out. So my mother threw me through the window, and my father caught me. Right. And of course I kept quiet. My brother, when he was thrown, he started to cry. He wasn't hurt, but he started to cry. And then the others they sneaked out, and so did my mother. And my mother's cousin, wore a white blouse. And the moon was out, and we had to hide because we weren't sure that soldiers or people who didn't, the reason they, excuse me, those people didn't like us is because we were Jews. You see, when the war stopped.
Which war? This is World War I.
This is World War I, yes. In Russia, the soldiers came home, and the first thing they did when they came to the smaller towns was to kill the Jews.
Uh-huh.
In fact, my father told me, naturally, this was when we were in the United States, that they took all the men from the little town. They considered it a big town, but it was a small town, and they had him come into the synagogue. The soldiers did, and then they demanded women and liquor, and they had 2 men go out for that, and then they were sitting there with their guns pointing at the rest of the men. So naturally, liquor they got, but they couldn't get young girls or women. So they told them, well, we can't get a hold of very many now. We will. Me will have a drink. Well, they drank so much that they naturally became intoxicated.
Sure.
So one of the men grabbed one of them, and they all ran out. They were very fortunate, but they all ran out.
So one of the men.
He grabbed him.
Grabbed a soldier.
He grabbed one of the soldiers, and he had his gun, but his gun was down. Uh-huh. So he got a hold of the gun, he got a hold of them, and of course, he didn't have to say anybody. Sure. The men all went out. That's the one thing. Then there was...
So was your dad there?
No, it was not. It was the older men that they took in the synagogue. Why my father wasn't there, I don't know. But all he said that they took the old men in, so I don't know.
Is that when your family left?
Oh yes, yes.
So they just up and left.
Naturally we ran. You see, there was no one place that we were going to. In fact, we were in England. We went all over.
So your dad just like left in a moment's notice almost.
That's right. We did.
And
then...
what did he do at the time, though? I mean, did he have any money saved?
No,
or?
well, nothing. Well, my mother had some jewelry, so, you know, whenever they needed money, they gave him the jewelry.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember part of this. We were upstairs in an empty building. They were building this building, and I looked down, and there was a lot of people with us, a brother and a sister, and they saw their parents being killed.
Oh, really?
Right in front. So naturally, they screamed.
Sure.
So the soldier, so everybody started to run away because they were afraid of the soldiers. My father lied down, and I lied down on top of him. He lied down this way. I lied down on top of him. One soldier came up, and at that time, naturally, I don't know how old I was, I spoke a little Russian. And, you know, I was rather a cute little girl, nice blonde hair and the whole thing. So he said to my father and to me, "Shh, don't say anything. I'll go downstairs and tell him there was nobody up here." And it saved my father's and my life. See, as I say,
Russia?
No, I don't think it was in Russia. We were way out of Russia already. I don't know where we were.
You came from Kiev, right?
We were everywhere. No, we didn't come from Kiev.
Where were you born?
I was born in Stavish. It's a little town. I don't even know if it's on the map or ever was on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Stavish, yeah. That's where I was born.
Okay.
And so from there, that's when I think we came to Berlin from there. I don't know where else. We were all over.
Did you have family in Europe? Do you know? I mean, where would you sleep at night?
We slept wherever we happened to be. If we came, for instance, to a place, oh yes, they paid some money, and we came to a place that had all kinds, just sand. No, not sand, straw.
Right.
I have no idea what it looked like. We slept there. It didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Did it help? Did some of the Jewish communities throughout?
The Jewish
Europe
community
help at
had
all?
nothing to do with you that time. They were all in the same problem. They had the same problem.
But I imagine as you headed west across Europe, it got a little better.
When we got to England,
Mm-hmm.
I remember they did help us some. In fact, there was a picture that they took, and I had a dress on. They gave me a dress because I didn't have anything.
Sure.
And but I don't have the picture, never had it. I did meet a woman in the United States, and I've seen her for many times. She was in that picture with me. She recognized me. And I said, "Oh, I'd love to have a picture." She said, "I'll see when I can find it." Meanwhile, we never saw each other again.
All right.
And I didn't. Well, then the next thing that I do remember is when we were in, oh God, where were we 2.5 years? In, oh God.
Not in England.
No, not England. I told you.
Chicago.
No, this was in Europe. And
Berlin?
Berlin.
Yeah.
No, not Berlin. I told you about Berlin. We slept in a synagogue.
Okay.
What is the name of the place?
Wasn't in France at all, was it?
No, it wasn't in France.
Okay. Well, you
Well,
slept in a synagogue.
We slept in a
Western
synagogue.
Europe.
They did accept us there. My mother had a blanket. The blanket was stolen. Oh, while we slept there, in order to pay for the few days, which we did not have money, of course, maybe we stayed a week or so, my mother used to scrub and clean the whole synagogue up for them. Yes. I'll probably have it. Then, after that, my mother and father, we moved to a place where there was one room, and we had my mother's cousin, her husband, and 2 children, and of course we were 2. And then my parents opened up, they had I've forgotten what it was called, but it was outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
They started to sell dairy products.
Like out of a cart or something? Or?
No, it was
It was
stationary.
stand?
It was stationary.
So
It
they
was
had
a stand, like a stand. So they sold all kinds of dairy products.
Mm-hmm.
So then we were able to get some food to eat. And well, it wasn't very much, but
Right.
it was something.
Some cheese, right?
Well, cheese, a little milk, and all that. Then, prior to that, when we lived in that one room, we didn't have much food, but my mother was able to bake bread for us and made sour pickles, you know, because that was the easiest thing she could do. And then they told me this too, that a man came to the door one day and he asked, "I'm so hungry, could you give me something?" So my mother says, "Yes, we'll give you some bread and a couple of pickles." He says, "Just give me 2 because I want it for my wife." So my mother said she gave him quite a few pickles and gave him a whole bread. This little, it was just, again, I told you before where it was, and I can't think of where. Romania. That's when we were in Romania.
So you stayed in Romania for a while, it sounded
We
like.
stayed in Romania for 2.5 years. I'll never forget that. For the simple reason we had doctors from the U.S., America. It wasn't USA, it was America. And then they, you know, children, they always, oh yes, while we were still in the synagogue, I came down with the measles. So naturally they took me, you know, they took care of the hospital. I was okay, I came out, I was fine. My brother got the measles. They put him in a hospital, but I guess it was a Christian hospital, and they did not permit anybody to go see him. So my poor mother would stand outside. He was screaming and crying, and she was crying, and nothing happened. All right, that was that. Then, when we did get settled, after, you know, being outdoors and all, these, excuse me, American doctors used to examine us. So they examined me, and they thought I was going to get glaucoma in my ears, my eyes, rather. So they operated on me. Well, yes. Well, you see, they didn't ask questions.
Sure.
This is what has to be done. And they never gave me anything, any pill, nothing. It was just done. So naturally, it was very painful. I don't know how long the area or whatever it was. All I know is my mother held on to me, and I was crying and you know, jumping back and forth and all. I didn't scream, but I did.
So they didn't use anesthetics?
Well, they didn't. They didn't use anything.
They operated on your eyes while you were like...
Yeah, right. So after that, of course, things were different. But then from there, where did we go? Oh, yeah, we went to Amsterdam. Excuse me. And then we were coming to America. Well, you see, Russia all had a certain, what was it? So many people can come in. I can't think of the word right now.
Into the United States?
No, to America.
Yeah.
From Russia.
Yeah, there were certain immigration policies.
That's right,
Sure.
the immigration policies. Well, we were not aware of it.
Sure.
You know, they mailed. We went to the.
Why?
When
why
we
did
got.
do you know why? I mean, you were in Amsterdam, and that had a fairly big Jewish community at the time, and
Yes,
and
I
England
know.
as well.
Right.
Why did you want to go to America and not stay there?
Right away. First of all, my grandparents and the others came to America first, and that's where we were going. We were not going to go anyplace else. See.
Oh, so he was sort of, he just kind of wandered around until you could save enough and get to the
right. And
West
there,
Coast to get over to the United States.
right.
Oh.
Well, anyway, and then, then we came by with the ship to Ellis Island.
Right.
But when it came to Ellis Island, yes, we came to Ellis Island, the quota was filled.
How was the trip over the boat?
The trip was very nice, as far as I can remember. We were not in the dungeon. We were not in first class, but still, it was nice. So then my mother naturally got sick. My mother was only, I don't know if she was 30 years old. And she was younger than that. She had a breakdown. Then we came back to
So you guys got to Ellis Island. They said they were
yeah, well, they
full.
sent us back.
Met their
The quota's
quota.
full,
And
so
is
they
that when-
sent it. They
Is that
sent.
when Bobby had a breakdown?
Yes,
She's
yes.
just gonna hand it Melanie. She'd gone so hard and.
Well, sure, it was just
What was her name? Her full name?
Elka.
Elka.
So we came back to Where was I before?
Well, you were in Amsterdam in England. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
where.
and then we came back to Amsterdam
Okay.
because we took the ship from there. Right. Well, the shipping company, naturally, it was their fault. So we had to stay 6 months in Amsterdam. It wasn't bad, except all we had was apples to eat, you know.
The year, what year that was?
I don't. All I remember, I was 9 years old when I came. But who can? First of all, I said to my mother, "How do you know how old I am?" She says, "It's before this year and before that year, and I was married such a year." That's how it was, you see.
Right.
And she didn't. She knew she was born in the summer, but she didn't know when. So when we came to the United States,
So how old are you now?
I'm 83.
You're 83. Okay,
Yeah.
so you were 74. That was 74 years ago,
Right.
roughly.
And so then-
1997. So that was.
In 23 we came.
1923.
In 20. So we came with the ship. Everything was fine already, but it was a holiday, so we couldn't get off the ship.
Really?
And there wasn't much food, but the people were very nice. They gave us. So then we went off to Ellis Island. You know, that's the way it's done. And we had to stay there, I don't know, whatever time it was. And it must have been on a Friday, because in the evening, the Jewish women all lit candles against the...
Shabbat candles.
Yeah, well, they brought them anyway. So the matron came and she said, "No candles," naturally. And we must have stayed there more than a day, because I remember they gave the children milk and a cracker, some sort, and I thought, oh, that's delicious. And while I was on the ship, I must have this, I remember. I was kind of cute. People, looked at, So I used to walk up, to first class. I was going to see whatever there is to see. I went up to first class. I got a banana, which I'd never seen. I got ice cream, which I had never seen.
Really?
And I saw a piano who ever heard of a piano? I mean, really. And everybody was nice. I did that several times. And I said to Uncle Nathan, "Come with me." "Oh, no, 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 no." I thought, go on.
Your brother, Nathan.
My brother Nathan. So I figured, yeah, stay here. Of course, I was much taller than Nathan at all times, you see. So he looked like the little shrimp. And it's not that I was so tall, but I was outgoing. Well, finally, one of the people mentioned something, and I was told, "You cannot go up there again." But you see, it only took us 5 days to come to the United States. So I had quite a few times. So when I came, Nabby says, "Did you ever eat ice cream?" I said, "Yes, I did."
Right.
And all that. Well, we came to Philadelphia before we came to Chicago, because my mother had to have papers on her own. And the only relatives she had were cousins who lived in Philadelphia. And his name was Braid, and so he said he was her brother.
Right.
So that's why my mother used her name Braid all the time. I never knew her name was Feingold, because it was Braid. When we
Right.
came, we were all so busy with other things. So, and then, of course, we came to Chicago, and we stayed with my grandparents about a month. And I remember we had, I forgot was
Whose parents were they?
my father's.
Your father's.
My mother's father was in the United States 2 times. And each time he came home, he told the second time especially, he wanted to take his whole family. Had 3 children at that time, 3 daughters, to come to America. So her mother said, "If you go, you'll drop in the ocean." So she didn't want to go.
Right.
He was there for 9 months. He died. I have a picture of him. She got married. Of course, that was when my mother was very young. But later, she had gotten married, and he had 5 sons. And that's the only grandfather I knew. And I loved the man. Just to tell you, one of my mother's sisters was pregnant when we were coming to the United States. And he was coming with us. But because she was pregnant and food was so scarce, he says, "I'm afraid she's not going to have enough food for herself. And while she's pregnant," he stayed behind, died of starvation. That's the type of a man he was. And my mother was engaged to one of his sons. he went into the service, and he must have had epilepsy or something, because that's why he had to be busted out. So naturally, she wasn't interested in that. And then when she saw my father, she happened to know somebody, you know, from the town, and then she came into their little grocery store, and my father saw her, and my father says, "Gonna marry her." And that's what it was.
Is that right?
So help me.
So, whose grocery store was it?
My grandmother and grandfather's.
Your father's
Yeah,
parents
right.
owned the
You
grocery
see,
store,
yeah,
and then
yeah. See,
your mom
my-
came in there, and,
right.
and that's how he met her.
See, my father bought everything that the merchants needed.
Right.
My father was a very educated man, and he was a mathematician. He was in the midst of writing a book. A math is for the children. All right. So that's, I mean, all of this. In fact, my mother says to me, you had a buggy. Daddy brought home a buggy for you. Only that time it was Papa or whatever. And then she said, he used to go to France and to Paris and all that, and he brought hats for her and all. Who knew?
Sure.
Another thing, my father had a temper, not to my mother and not to us, but he and his mother would always fight. She was a strong woman, he was a strong man. And he's a man, so he couldn't take it. Well, just during the marriage or after the marriage or whatever, they had an argument. So when I was born, my father said to my mother, "You can't take Leah over there to my mom," or whatever. So my father went away to do some work. She wrapped me up and she took me. My mother didn't listen, They had a very happy marriage, and it wasn't like you walking back of me like the men used to. And she took me over to the grandparents. And then he said, "Why did you do that?" She said, "It's their first grandchild, and they deserve to see her." That was my mother. And that's about all I can remember. Also coming here, going to school, the kids laughed at us.
Where did you go to school, in Chicago, or is that...
Oh, Chicago.
When did you move to Los Angeles?
I moved to Los Angeles because my father was very ill. He had asthma.
How old were you, though?
I was 26.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you were an adult.
Oh, sure, I was an adult. And we had a market. So my mother couldn't leave, and my brother stayed in the market with him. Sheldon was just, a youngster. So I went with my father to Phoenix. And he was feeling better, but he was still sick there several times. I had a hard time with him. And then my mother had another cousin who lived in Los Angeles. She also had asthma, and she says the climate is good. So we came to Los Angeles. Then my folks, we came in April. Yeah, and my mother and two brothers came in May.
Right.
But they were ready to. They didn't sell the store, but they just sold everything out. Fine, and they came, and that was in May. No, not in May. It was later. Wait a minute. I was married in 1940, but what year was it? What's before November?
October? In September? August? July?
No. I think it was in September. Yeah, that's right. We came in September, and they came... Yeah, right.
So you came in September, and then when did you meet Grandpa?
I met
Like
Grandpa in September.
Oh, that same month you arrived.
You see, we came at the beginning of the month. So the cousin had two daughters.
Right.
So immediately, a young man came in, and I started dating him. My father didn't like him. He never liked anybody I was going with, In fact, I had told my mother, when I meet the man I want to marry, no one is going to tell me when or how or why. It's just like I told her, I'm not going to keep a kosher home. And I didn't. Then I met him in September. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right then.
No, yeah, right. I met him.
Sure.
Jewish holidays, I think it was. Whatever, Then of course, we went out and we got married very fast. But that's the way it was.
We have that story on tape, certainly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, well.
Okay, so then you had my mom about a year later.
Yeah. Then your dad. Yeah.
And then you had
The twin.
Aunt Sharon and Aunt Betty.
But I must tell you about Mom. When I had Mom my grandpa's parents were alive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they...
Your husband's parents. Okay.
Yeah, my husband's parents. And they were at the house for, oh, I don't know, whatever it was. And I was in the other room, and your mom started to cry. And, you know, Daddy, which was unusual for that time, would diaper her. I didn't say don't, and I didn't say do. So she was in a buggy, because that's the way it was. So he went into the kitchen where they were sitting, and he was diapering her. So he says, a businessman diapers a baby? And I, a very sweet little girl, I said, if a businessman can make a baby, he can diaper her too. Then when the twins were born, well, and Barbara used to go to sleep just like me. 10 o'clock, but you know she had to have a bottle 10 o'clock. I would wake her up. I mean, nowadays, would I wake a baby up? But at that time I did. Then when the twins were born, of course, I had someone to stay with the children all the time. So I had a nurse for a month because it's twins. So Carl, as soon as I came home, he says, I don't want you to get up during the night. If she needs anything, I'm up. So I slept.
Wow.
It was very nice. But it wasn't that his father was a mean person or anything, but it just wasn't done. Like my mother-in-law said to me, six children were alive, but I don't know how many she had, because, you know, they would die in between and all. So she told me, and you know, when I had your mother, 2 weeks in the hospital, which was crazy.
Jeez.
With the twins, it was 10 days. That was terrible. It was much better. But so she was telling me that after 3 days, she was up. She had to bake. She had to do this, which was really better for her. But it was unheard of at that time. And never had any help. I mean, and they all were close together. But that's the way things were.
Okay, so you had my mom in 41.
Yes, and
Twins in 43.
That's right.
And then came Aunt
Estelle in 45.
Okay.
And
then
Wendy in 47.
So in 6 years you had 5 girls.
Yeah, see, we had to, your grandfather wanted a boy.
Sure.
And when the girls didn't even know it, I told him, that's your fault. I tried to explain to him, but he didn't. In fact,
What do you mean you're trying to explain it? They didn't know back then that the
well, I did.
in the sex. Oh, you did.
I did.
Oh, okay.
So, I must tell you this. I have a ophthalmologist who's Wendy had recommended me to her. And so when we would talk, she asked me, how Wendy and all that. And I said, and she said, you have 5 girls? I said, yes. And I told her about that. Oh, she says, most men don't approve of it. So, you know, that's what it was. But we both said that's enough. I mean,
Right.
It was fine. I didn't mind having 5 daughters, but every man wants a son.
Must have been pretty tough to raise 5 daughters and an awful lot of work.
Well, I had a housekeeper all the time. But you see, it depends what you're in. You know, times are different than nowadays. Of course, the housekeeper never gave the children a bath. None of my children ever had that. Nobody ever gave them food but myself. Occasionally the father did, you know, like on a Sunday. Otherwise, I took care of everything.
And about changing them, you would change them also?
Always.
The housekeeper wouldn't do that?
I never wanted her to.
So the housekeeper really just
Did the
took care of
house. Yeah, she cleaned the house and did other things. And you know, at that time, all bottles had to be sterilized, see? No one ever touched, which was foolish, but that's the way I felt. And that's the way I did it.
Still a lot of work.
Oh, yes.
Were you always cooking as they got older and
Oh, yes.
cleaning
And you
were they responsive? Did they do their chores or
what chores? In fact,
What
not
chores?
too long ago, what they responded? They had to make up their bed before they went to school. That was it.
That was it?
That was it. In fact, Betty has said, you know, you never gave us any. I didn't know that. It was my work, and I did.
Oh, okay.
And that's the way it was.
So what were their personalities like?
They were good. Yes, they were good kids.
Were they competitive with each other?
I think they were, you know, it's been a long time. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to remember. But I think they were.
Mm-hmm.
And look how nice they are with each other now, even with Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, it's,
They all get along.
yes. Well, Carl was
I'd say
very,
they're fairly competitive today.
well,
Yes,
are.
they get along very well, but they're pretty
Well-
competitive. So I would imagine that was there as children.
well, maybe so. I don't, all I know is when it came to buy a gift for them,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, let's buy 2 or 3 gifts and then learn to share. Not buy him. Everybody had to have, each one had to have, and it was all the same. But that's the way life was.
Okay, so when did your father pass away?
My father died, I have a picture of him holding the twins. He died in February. They were
43.
born in February, and he
First,
died.
right.
I think it was either 6 months later, because they were born at the beginning
Right,
of February.
right, February 1.
And he was, I don't know the date, but I think it was
so just around the summer.
well, no, it wasn't. Maybe it was, I don't remember.
Okay.
And he was a very sick man.
Right.
When we came here, he had to be in the hospital. Well, it was all, in fact, he had a very good doctor. And
What did he die of?
asthma was, it was
Was it
common.
tuberculosis?
No, he didn't have tuberculosis, but you see, he had, what's the disease that comes with asthma? I can't think of it now.
He lives here right now. to help us
Well,
out.
I
Right,
knew
Wendy.
it too. My mind isn't always that great in remembering. And so we lived in a very nice little house. You know, we rented. We had some very nice furniture, which we brought from Chicago. And this doctor came. This was the second time he came to see him, but once he came, we took him to his office. So he looked, everything was so nice, and he said, we'll give him a private room. And I said, I'm sorry, we can't afford it. And we couldn't. But he was with him for as long as but he was in and out of the hospital quite often. It's, asthmatic? No, that's not, I can't think of the word.
So okay, so you guys came out in 40,
Yeah,
and
No.
he passed away in 43.
yes.
So when he came out, was he still not healthy, or was he
Oh,
working? Was he teaching?
no, he couldn't work, he couldn't teach. He was
Uh-huh.
sick, he was sick many times.
So how were you guys
You-
supporting
the
yourselves?
reason, well, first of all, he had some money. They had some from the market.
Okay.
See. But
Stock market, you mean?
no,
from the
the
market
from the,
grocery.
yeah. Well, the reason we came out here is because he couldn't go back to Chicago. He, his own brother, said if he goes back in half a year, he'll be gone. And at least here he lived for 3 years. He may have been sick, but he did live.
Right.
You know, as much as one lives with an illness. And that's what it was.
Those are interesting stories.
Well, there are many stories, but I don't remember. And if you ask my brother Nathan, he doesn't remember anything. I keep saying Sharon should have been with us. Sharon doesn't forget anything.
He's a historian.
Sounds like you remembered an awful lot of it, though.
Well, yes, but you see, the thing is, I didn't remember anything in sequence, and many things that my folks told me I've forgotten. It's like, well, I don't know. My mother would tell us different stories. Like I was telling Jerry, my grandmother, you want to hear this?
Sure.
My grandmother was 16 years old, and her father naturally had to make an arrangements for a wedding. She had the market, the little grocery store. She was working there. So he went to, I don't know if it's the same town or another, maybe the same town, and he went to the yeshiva, and he saw all the boys, the young men, and he chose the one who was the smartest, knew his yeshiva better than anybody. So the two men made an arrangement, you know. And then he came back and he gave is it a kaseba? Oh.
Sounds right.
I think that's what it was called. Well, it still is for that matter. Anyway, and he gave it to her. She tore it up and she says, you marry him. But at that time, well, that was my grandmother, but that didn't work. She did marry him a year later. There was a happy marriage. But when she married him, He wore, I don't know what they were called, but like house slippers, you know. He wasn't any business or anything, you know, just. So she said to him, this was maybe a few weeks after they were married, in my house you're going to wear shoes, whatever they were called. And that's the way it was. But she ran the business. And when they came to Chicago, he didn't work. His sons and daughters worked, and all the money came in. Occasionally, he worked rolling cigarettes. And Mary, my Aunt Mary, not Harry's wife, my other Aunt Mary, and I used to smoke. So he'd roll cigarettes for us. So he would roll cigarettes for us. And one Friday night, we were at the house, and Mary said to me, let's have a cigarette. I said, Mary, Zeta's going to be home pretty soon. Oh, she says, on Friday he comes home late. So he went into the bathroom because my grandmother didn't care. The others wouldn't know. And we just barely came out. Here comes Zeta. And you know, he didn't say a word. If he had scolded me, I would have felt better. But he never said a word. That's the way he was. And my grandmother played bridge. Of course, she used to keep trumps occasionally because she felt she might need a trump at the end of the game. She never traveled on Shabbos, but I think she would have if it hadn't been for him. She kept a kosher home. She was a very good cook. In fact, they had all sorts of cousins there. Brothers and sisters who never saw each other, never talked with each other. My grandmother started to make dinners, and everybody became friends again. You know, that's the way life was. Oh, and then I had the measles there. This was when we were still living with them. No, not the measles, the mumps. I came down with everything. I had the mumps, and we were living in a house, and they had a, you know, one of those stoves with, what do they call it? I forgot.
Wood burning?
Well, there was no other heat but the stove, see. And, you know, having the mumps and all that, she was naturally trying to keep me warm and all that. And me, I faint. My grandmother was a short little woman, a really heavy-set little lady, until she got me up. And I don't care what you weigh twice as much when you're out like that. And naturally, she was worried about me. I was fine. Nobody else got the mumps. Then I had my tonsils out. I came back. I was, you know, I was good. It's true. Uncle Nathan had his tonsils out.
Now, where were we when?
Well, this was in Chicago.
This was in Chicago.
Yeah, I was just a kid. Anyway, Nathan had his tonsils out. So, you know, it was a nice day. He had been home a long time already. It was a nice day. We went to the park, and he lied down. My mother had whatever. He got sick. He had to go to the hospital. He lost 30 pounds. I never lost an ounce. I gained, but never lost an ounce. He lost 30 pounds, but it was during the summer months. So while they went to work, I was with him because I didn't have school. And my mother would leave the food and all that. Of course, I could prepare some of the food for him. And I took care of him. He was lying there. He gained the 30 pounds during the summer. And then he went back to school. That's the way Nathan was. I was always the strong one. Not Nathan. It's like when we were in the store, you know, I was working and he was working in the store to help my mother because my father many times couldn't do very much. At the beginning he did a lot, but it got worse. So every Saturday evening he would go out. And when he came home, he just dropped his clothes, you know, and all that. And I took care of him for a while. Then one day he woke up on Sunday and he said, you didn't hang up my shirt and my, you know, pants and all that. I said, if you want your suit hung up, you hang it up. I was out too. I hung up my clothes. After that, I didn't hang up anything anymore. That's the way I was. When Sheldon was a year old.
Was he born in Chicago?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. um, we had bought the store, only I didn't go with them because they had, I did, but then I had to stay home with him a week because of, well, I don't remember what it was. And we used to rock Sheldon. I mean, yeah, Sheldon, to sleep all the time. Never forget. He was in the buggy and I was dropped. And I had a date. My date came. I'm going to leave. So he, no, no, no. Nathan started. No, 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 Leah, Leah. I said, nothing doing. My date says, you still rock him? I said, yes. Well, that's when after they left me alone, no more rocking. The first day I was with him, I don't know if I could have done it if it was my own child, believe me. But I said to him, Nathan, Sheldon, you can cry and cry. I'm not going to rock you. You're going to go to sleep. I gave him his bath. I gave him his dinner. No, it was lunch. Lunch, but I used to give him the bath early. And dinner, lunch, and I put him in bed, and he cried, and he cried. And I thought, oh, he fell asleep. Then came dinner. I gave him dinner, cleaned him up. I said, he only cried 10 minutes. He cried a half hour. The next day, he didn't cry at all.
So you were kind of a mother figure back then.
Oh, yes, yes. But as I say, I don't know if I would have done it with my own child. I don't know.
Well,
maybe I wouldn't.
Do some things with your child.
Yes, but I mean, I don't think I could. Maybe later, thinking of it, I don't know if I could have done it. But
Did you let your girls cry when they?
There was no crying.
There was no crying.
They get through eating, you wipe their faces and all that, and put diapers on or whatever, and you go to sleep. There's no crying. Listen, when I was pregnant with Barbara, we lived in an excuse me, before Barbara was born, we lived in an apartment. I always lived in an apartment, but not Carl. He was looking, after we were there 5 months, we had a house already. That's the way he felt. Good. So he had to be working late, and we didn't have a phone. And his sister and brother-in-law, the family, lived across the street. And his brother-in-law used to work for him. So he told Murray to come and tell me that he's going to be there a little later. I'm sitting on a chair like this. I'm fast asleep. I do that now. Ruth comes to clean. I go to another room, and many times I turn television on and I sit on the chair and I'm asleep. So that's the way I was. But the children didn't cry. They slept. And then when Carl used to come home, especially with the twins first, he would pick her up. We pick one up and show them to people, friends of ours, and then the other one. I never said a word because they went to sleep right after that. It was,
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was a different era.
Do you miss that era?
I don't know. At that time, I liked it. I don't know how it would be now. It's different. You know, it's different time.
What's it like being a great-grandmother?
It's wonderful. Hey, this is what I told from friends of mine. I have two friends who are great-grandmothers. One her granddaughter is 1.5 years. The other one, the girl's married very young. So I think she has 3 and she's 81 years old, my friend. So we were talking about that. And you know how great-grandmothers and fathers, of course, I don't know. I said, they're crazy. I said, the grandparents, my son and daughter-in-law, are crazy. I said, but so am I. Yeah, it's true. You love your grandchildren, too. I mean, but it's a different age, a different time. And, of course, we waited so long. I mean, your mother was ready the day you got married. Am I wrong?
Very good.
So that's that. All right?
Well, we'll have to get some more memories from you at another time.
What do you want to get?
I don't know. We'll have to think about it a little bit more. But you gave us a lot today. Thank
I
you.
always do.
Thank you.
Well, Carl used to say Barbara was the speaker of the house. Always the speaker of the house.
Talk to the
we talked to everybody, you know, to get the information. Because it was so late.
Going on a plane.
Yeah. But anyway, he did go. And oh, he came back. He came back and all that says to me, that's the only way to go.
On a plane?
Yeah. I'm not saying anything anymore.
Why?
Because I've been talking and talking. I have nothing else to say.
But it's interesting to hear about how, you know,
About
I mean,
what?
these are new technologies. I mean, you come to the United States and there's a toilet inside the house. It's kind of a funny story, but it's also tells something about
Well, that's very true.
how the country grew.
Listen, it was different when we came to Los Angeles. We had apartments where, you know, you had an entrance at the front and you had an entrance at the back, at the rear.
Yeah.
Came here, and my father and I were here a month before my mother and the two boys came. Then I had to rent a And I said, where's the entrance to the rear? And he said to me, there's no entrance in the rear. You just walk in that way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was not good.
Also, we used to have, you have to give the word now. Where you keep your,
We had
your
to go
groceries
to
and
New York and
things.
then there and so on.
Refrigerator?
Icebox?
No, not an icebox. A special room. What would it be? What is it?
Pantry?
A pantry.
Sure.
We always had a walk-in pantry. In the apartments we moved in, they didn't have walk-in pantries. They just had, you know, side wherever. And I asked for it. So I think the man said to me, "What do you want a butler too?" I didn't know what a butler was. I never had a butler, but we did have a walk-in pantry. So there's a difference in whenever you change. And also,
When did you get a telephone?
telephone?
Yeah.
Oh, a telephone we got pretty early. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then there was something else I was looking right now.
And I don't know.
Oh, I know. When I came to Los Angeles,
Did I see
of
somebody
course everything was,
before?
there was not a bus, it was a streetcar.
And
And I went downtown.
You went before.
I went before and visited
That was made for me, but this one used to copy hats, and, you know, $3, $4, $5 was a lot
and I
of money.
remember just
But you know, she made him to order. And I had this hat on, and I had gloves on. I mean, that's what I was accustomed to. And I went to the maid company downtown, which was a beautiful store at the time. And I walked through there, and the
Sharon and I
don't know.
went
buyer
to South America.
I don't
from
know
the
what the process of
'76, and I
department
didn't
there saw me.
the kids
Where
to
did you get your
69
shack
to
full?
Salamanca. We stayed.
I said to Chicago, oh, it's lovely. I came home and I said to them, boy, is this a hick town. They walk so slow, and I'm wearing a hat that's about at least 2-3 years old, and he wants to know where I got my chapeau. It didn't take long. I like the hick town. I walked as slow, and it did exactly as they
But
did.
do you travel a lot?
That's the end of the story.
Nola?
It's a good story. Whoa.
Nola?
Power nap.
She took a nap? No. I was gonna say, no.
She's too busy.
Decided she wasn't tired.
Yeah, she does that.
When did you guys get a television? When did you get a television?
Oh, and television.
You're gonna to Barcelona?
Excuse me a minute. I don't remember. But we got it pretty early. There was one television on the
The Gaudi.
on
The
our
Gaudi.
streets, not a lot, but you know, 5 blocks long. He had a television.
I
And then
know.
we bought
I
a
know.
television. And then everybody on the street, all the kids used to come.
Right.
Now she goes, you go to kids.
I remember hearing a funny story that when you had the television, it was new. You guys were watching the news, and there was a story, and they were showing photographs because they didn't, you know, at that time it was very expensive, and they didn't really have down the technology of taking a moving camera out and taking pictures and showing it. So they would send a photographer out and show the photos.
But tell her we got rather late.
And you guys thought the television was broken because it was just showing these still photos
Right.
as opposed to transmitting
They used to
information.
They used to just watch not even commercials, whatever was on, even if it wasn't on, they sat.
The pattern.
Yeah.
Remember the patterns?
That's right, the patterns.
So she couldn't go on the trip.
Hi, sweetie.
So guess who went? I took her to her place. That was the good news and the bad news.
Right.
Yeah, no, but Betty was, they were supposed to go and take Mom and
I was very happy with it.
You weren't sleepy, were you?
that was
Yeah, she was, but then she gets...
I know. I
Yeah,
thought.
If she doesn't want to sleep, she takes her arm and she pushes you and she goes
Remember, you
backwards.
just gone back from Russia like
Well,
a
you see,
couple
she didn't want to miss anything.
I can't go. Will you go?
It's a burst of energy.
had 3 months
It's
trying
good.
to get rid of the strep throat. Oh yeah, I did have a strep throat for a while, yeah. But they gave her this really expensive medicine that was supposed to work. And then she took
So
that
nice
for
to have a
like,
happy
how long?
baby.
She said, I'm going to Russia. I need to get rid of this. So they give her the cheap penicillin and it worked in no time. I don't know what they're doing. The other stuff cost you like $60.
It was very expensive. I don't know what.
And it didn't work. And the penicillin was like 6. And it knocked it out 2 seconds.
Yeah, we're gonna get a computer, you think?
20 days of, I know.
Mother?
No need.
I
Yeah.
know.
I don't need it. I don't even know if I know how to work it.
I don't know how to work it.
You don't.
And I could use it.
Oh, yeah. 9 months I was in Europe 3 times.
It's like with a typewriter. I used to be a very good typist. When
What's the
they-
typewriter?
That's just it. Well, anyway, when they started college, I wasn't going to use the typewriter at all. Remember, I said I'm not going to type anything for you. You have to do your own.
Did you ever type for us? Did we ever ask?
No, I
I was going to
didn't.
say, what was the change?
Well,
Still,
the
you was
change,
using
wait a
the
minute,
computer?
was because Joyce used to have
I
it,
just did a little
the
bit.
others and all. And I never did anything like that, but I used to type when I needed. Now I don't think I'd be able to type on a
What did
typewriter.
you know? I was there for
Did I type for you? I
No.
We all typed it out?
Right.
That's right.
I don't remember it.
Do you even know what a typewriter is, Anna? Do you know what a typewriter is? Yes.
I even typed,
Wait, 7
Betty, I even typed papers that was before I was married in Chicago for Uncle Harry.
Yeah, I gave her. I know she was really good. I hated typing.
Because I don't know. Yeah, I know you did.
Now it's true, it's a
Mendes
typewriter.
when he went to Princeton, he not only typed the papers, his father did his assignments for him, had someone to do it.
Oh, really?
She's never going to know what a typewriter
And
is.
he'd have them done and send them back to him.
Are you, honey?
Right?
I'm surprised.
I know.
It is an antique, yes.
I'd rather type.
As I say, I don't know if I remember even to use it now.
Yeah.
And boy, the kids sat down and they all ate very well.
Yeah.
Sheldon, my brother, could not afford it. His wife was very sick and it was expensive.
Nathan.
Nathan, I mean, I'm sorry, Nathan. This is Nathan. Say anything, I didn't expect him. And that after evening, they were going to have the rabbi come, service in the evening. And I had several cakes. Friends who came in before had cakes. I wanted to give them a cake, and Nathan said to me, "Don't you give them a cake." And I didn't. They could afford to buy a cake. I mean, to me, it didn't mean anything. But my brother Nady didn't want it. He says, "Don't you give him a cake." As I said, I take orders.
Sometimes.
I do as I please most of the
Right,
time.
I know.
Wow. Well, it was really nice today.
Oh, it was lovely.
I think everybody really enjoyed being
Oh,
here.
Everyone had a wonderful
It was
time.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I like that little cat, too.
That is the cutest little cat. Adorable.
I didn't want the
That's
$100 shoes.
Kids
though.
now.
Yeah, they do.
They had shoes there, $100, $120.
Where?
Really,
There's a
really
little
cute.
store in Beverly Hills we went to.
Yeah. I'm
Little
not
clothes
there.
like this, $95, $120, little outfits.
For the little,
Oh, wow, look at those. Those look great.
Yeah.
They are good.
God, I couldn't believe it.
We were the only ones in there.
Those shoes that she's wearing today are like $45.
No,
really?
no. The shoes that
In
she's
Nordstrom's
wearing.
they were.
No, the sandals?
The tennis shoes. Oh, I thought
She's
she
wearing her
was
little sandals. No, her other ones were
And
like
you know
40,
something?
35,
Oh,
40.
excellent.
Those were not leather.
You
want a little plate?
Those were not leather, $100.
Mm.
No, the stride bikes when you guys were little were that much.
Really?
Yeah, $35, $40. Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't gone up. But she has some sandals on right now that were
Those people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got that from
they
David.
were really expensive.
You want some
I got that nuts. I've got those nuts.
No, I don't want any nuts.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Mom, can I get you?
200.
Well,
I
yeah.
can't
Yeah,
walk
they
a
want
mile
them
in them.
just like that.
What's that?
I can't
Oh,
walk a
that's.
mile now
I think that's
anyway.
fine.
The ones that I can walk
Yeah,
up, used
with
to be able to
coffee,
walk
tea,
a mile or more in it. I run 70.
Stuff.
That's what you call it.
I don't know.
Nancy
What
Wendy's
used to
foot.
pay for a pair of shoes like this? $50, $40, $50.
That's right, that's right.
It's
But
incredible.
I like those shoes and that's what I bought.
Good for you.
You want me to put this in here just in
Yeah.
You
case?
see, this is the one, you know,
Oh.
it's so
Thank
loud.
you.
It
Pretty
falls
colors.
off of this
I think
finger, and so I
they
wear
all
it
look
here.
Want it on the
So
receipt?
Barbara, how you
Don't
forgot
have a
about
size
me?
for
I
it.
forgot to get the receipt, but if you need the receipt, I
Oh,
have that.
no, I know that size
That-
of fit.
okay.
That's not.
It falls
Yeah.
off of that finger, you say?
No, on this one it doesn't
Yeah.
fall
I
off,
read
but
this,
it
all the
fits.
thing is.
On this one,
Oh, she fits into that weight
Which
group.
finger
I think
do you
it'll
want
fit.
to
And I
wear?
found the
on
height,
this
but I
finger.
wasn't positive.
Yeah. Okay.
No, no, no,
I
no,
can't
that's
believe
not the
you
one.
did
This
it.
is the one.
This is the one. This is
Yeah.
It's so weird. Are you ready?
You see? I need an 8.5.
Psychologically?
Grant, let's see
Let
the
me
pen
have a
now.
size for you.
Tomorrow.
But I'm going away. Well, keep it until I come back,
I
and then
can
I'll
wait.
have it sized.
Yeah, I know.
We have to have that ring sized for her. Little
Granny,
small.
let's see your pendant.
Oh,
So open it up.
Lock it.
Will you open it? Lock it.
Oh, shit, yeah.
oh yeah.
it's
So
not-
easy
yeah.
to open too.
It's easy to open.
So move your finger. So there's
What do you have in there?
Ariana and me.
Okay,
And who's on the next page?
just a moment. Hold yourself there.
We lost a page.
We lost a page.
Now, just a minute.
You gotta get your fingernail right in the middle. There you go.
There we go.
No.
Oh.
There you are.
And then Liz and Jerry.
That's right.
All right. All the grandchildren and great
That's
grandchildren.
right.
That's so pretty.
Now, seriously, I am interested. If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay.
Yeah.
But did you, when you were younger, did you once say that you were a year younger, and then this year you finally came
When
clean?
I became a citizen on my father's papers, my father said that I was a year younger. He said
Hmm.
10, I was 10 years old. He said I was only 9.
Did
You
you
know, when we
favor?
went through Alice Island, they asked, and he gave them supposedly the age that I was going to be. Anyway, then
So he
when
didn't
I-
do it on purpose.
no, no. And listen, when they ask
didn't
you
know.
there, you don't ask questions.
What?
Anyway, then
No more?
keep quiet. I'm talking. Then
No more?
when I came to Los Angeles,
We're not gonna walk around with it.
I started a vote. I was a citizen and I voted. When we wanted to go to Israel, Grandpa and myself, I was not a citizen, so I couldn't go overseas. So I called one of the officials, and he gave me for 30 days I could go. We came back in June, and Grandpa was very sick, and when he died, I decided I want to be a citizen.
Right.
So I went. When Bubby went with me,
The missing years.
quiet. Bubby went with me, your grandmother,
Right.
and she asked me if they asked me questions, if I would know the answer. I said, Mom, don't worry, I won't be asked anything. And of course he didn't ask me any questions. I became a citizen. Then I had to have papers. I didn't have papers. When Grandpa died, in order to get the Social Security, since I didn't have a birth certificate, they took all the papers that my mother had from Russia, and they looked through all the papers, and instead of saying 1913, they said I was born in 1912.
14.
14 rather. I'm sorry, 1914.
That's
So
the
I kept that
Yeah.
year. Quiet. So I kept that year.
Get that you're quiet.
Yeah, but on my citizenship papers, I said 1913.
But wait a minute. Is it 1913 or 1914?
No, I was born in 1913.
Okay.
But they
Mother, you're only 84 then.
No, she's
No.
not.
Yeah.
But they got those papers and said that I was born 1914.
So, Mom, when you weren't officially a citizen, you were voting and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you had been voting forever.
I was voting.
You know you go to jail for that?
Well, I was a citizen. I was a citizen on my father's papers.
Yeah. Wow.
But when I came here, I voted for 30 years.
That's right.
Then they tell me I'm not a citizen.
What do they know? Was Bubby a citizen? Still.
Oh, Bubby was a citizen. Bubby and Dad, and my father became citizens at the same time. But she had to become, and he did, and all that.
But you really were a citizen under your father's papers, but they didn't have it down. You should have been.
Well, I showed the papers.
You should have been. They should have. Why did you? Because children, when their parents become citizens, become citizens.
Absolutely. I should have been. And that's why I voted. I was a citizen.
Okay, so.
But my birthday is 1913, and that's it.
Did you always know that?
Well,
Were you concerned about letting the family know when they were kids? Because we just
never
learned this month.
discussed it.
Well, we just learned this month, right?
Right.
How did we think? Why did we think she was?
Because she always told us she was the young lady.
Why did you tell us that?
What did I always tell you?
That you were a year younger.
Because Grandpa said I was a year younger, so I kept that. But otherwise,
You knew.
I knew.
You knew.
But
You let it go.
Here we go.
that's it.
She
But
knew.
this is a significant birthday.
That's right.
But until it comes, it's not.
Right.
Does that mean we're all a year older?
No.
Does that mean
Oh,
we're doing
that's a
No,
good
you're
point.
not all a
Didn't we
year.
have a big 80 birthday?
What if you change your mind next year? What happens?
Right.
years ago?
Let's take those.
Wait, we had a big 80
That's
We
birthday
had an
4
80
years
That's
ago.
right.
We had it 5 years ago.
And you didn't have
4
it
years ago.
coming.
4 years ago.
We should have had it
That's
by
No,
right.
she had it coming for a long time, actually.
Should have had it.
What if you tell us something different next year?
It's okay.
Next year I'm going to be 80.
I like that.
That's
I like that.
Then
That's
we'll
it.
all be
Okay, now let me ask you this. And again, if you're not uncomfortable, that's fine.
Next year will be
Does
1916.
the same story have anything to do with your middle name when you came to Ellis
No.
Island?
it. My middle name was, what was it again?
Yetta.
Yetta.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it,
That's a
so
good
I
name.
just forgot it.
And
So
she
we
lies
always
your
used to-
children.
When we, yes,
Now,
we
did
would
you
always
really
ask
forget
Mom.
it, or
What's your
did
middle
you-
name? Oh,
I
I don't
didn't
have a
like
middle
it.
name.
She didn't want anyone to know about it.
I
So we'd
didn't
ask
want
her
it.
what your middle name was when we were kids, and she said, "I don't know why. I never got a middle name." He said, "Everyone else has
I
a middle
forgot.
name.
That's
I
what
never
she
got a
forgot."
middle name. I don't know why."
Now, when
Like
you say
she
you
was cheated.
when you say you forgot, did you really forget, or were you?
No,
No,
she knew.
I
Or was it
just
convenient?
dropped
She
it.
knew.
That's the way I felt.
She knew. She knew that she did not have.
Plausible deniability, huh?
It's weird to have middle names. I never think about it.
It is.
Okay, so why do we hear about it now then? Do you feel comfortable with it now? You like the middle name now? Or
No.
are you just
How
coming
did we trap
clean
you
all of a
into
sudden?
that?
I don't care for it. I never did. As soon as
Why
I
did you
dropped
tell
it.
How did
Well, do you
why?
now?
I don't
Tell
remember
us.
the circumstances. You told
Why
us
did
what
you
you
tell
meant.
us now?
This
What
came out.
I don't remember what the circumstances
remember
were.
that.
Why did you
Uncle
tell us?
Nathan doesn't
Why
know
did
you
you
have a
tell
middle
us
name.
your name
Was
is
it?
Yetta? Your middle name is Yetta. You know, why did you?
You just told us a month ago that you had a middle name.
I didn't tell you. They told you.
I told you. Told me,
Well,
but I
us.
can't remember the circumstances.
The royal we.
You told
You
me.
let one person know
She
that.
had a
I
glass
don't
of
want
wine,
but
you
a
took
Your
it.
long,
mother did
long
not
time
want
ago.
to
No,
tell
you told me just a few
She
months
said,
ago.
"Just forget it."
A few months ago I told you.
Yeah.
I didn't want the name.
And Uncle
I don't
Nathan
have the
doesn't know you
name.
have a middle
Just
name.
forget it.
I will not.
was
And,
tell
we,
you.
overboard.
and evidently we
And
didn't
there's
just
either
forget it.
one.
That was the middle name they
That's
made me.
right. She'll know not to
And when
tell
I
us.
was over, I just didn't like it. Forget it. That's it.
Yeah.
I tell people if you
I
told
didn't
not
have
to
to
tell
have
me,
my
you'll
middle
never
name.
tell.
No.
I lied. But I
It's
want,
like
and on
No.
record,
when the,
this is usually the truth.
let's
Usually
see,
when I say I'm not telling, I don't tell.
the woman who delivers the babies.
Midwife.
Now, the midwife. You know, when a girl is born, they immediately, especially in Russia,
Pierce your ears.
pierce your ears. Well, this ear is one, and this ear is up here. So when I bought earrings, you know, one was here, one was here, so I had another one made here. And I didn't wear gold earrings till, oh, I don't know, a long, long time. I just didn't. I used to wear the clip-ons, very nice looking earrings. I gave it to some of my friends. And when I wore the gold, one was longer, one was... So I went and I had another, you know, I had...
Got 'em even now.
That's all. This one said she would never have pierced ears.
I did. So did I.
Right?
I said that.
So that's her. And Estelle, too. They would never have her stairs.
I want to know if it feels good to like tell us all these things and what more there is to learn.
There's no more. Forget it. He wants my whole history from the time I was born.
Oh, look at that!
He's got it.
Hi, baby. Oh, come up and
Oh,
see
do you have your
Grammy and
new
Grandpa.
hat?
Hey,
Is that your
sweetheart.
new hat?
She sees
Oh, what a
something else
beautiful
over there.
hat.
Where you going, baby?
You know where she's going? You just wait and see.
Glasses.
No, this is not your glasses.
They don't say grandma, but they say.
Just a minute. She sees something else. If she can reach it.
Really?
Yeah.
She wants that strawberry. She wants that strawberry.
Where you going, little one?
Yes.
Oh, God.
She's right at doorknobs now.
To the shed. Who doesn't invite who, Mother?
Diane does not
Oh, yeah.
invite Marion because
Oh.
she changed her
Pull
religion.
that out of my hand.
And it's
Jeez.
Diane and Jay, they're ultra
Right.
religious.
Right.
Oh, she doesn't invite Marion.
Right.
She does not invite Marion because Marion changed her religion. Marion's mother is my first cousin. Marion's grandmother was my father's sister. Whether she changed her religion or not, she's still my cousin, and I love her.
Marion, who's married to Petrocelli?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And her,
Who got OJ?
Oh,
Okay.
wait just a minute.
I don't mind if she gets
Marion-
the strawberry. She's just gonna make
Marion's
it. But the
mother
grapes
is my
she can't.
first cousin, Lillian. Marion's grandmother was my father's sister.
Strawberry on her and stuff.
Where'd she get a sign?
My father's sister.
Right.
Member of the
And
tribe.
I love Lillian,
Could you have a
and I like Mariana.
Sure.
She wanted to change her religion, that's up to her.
Actually, it's,
She's still welcome as far as I'm concerned. That's it.
so she said, listen.
Of course, her brother's a rabbi.
Really messy.
Oh yes, her brother's a rabbi, a reformed rabbi. He's getting a divorce.
Cheerios are good.
And Lillian, listen to this. Lillian and I, we spoke. You know, Mariana's brother, who's a rabbi, reformed rabbi, is getting a divorce from his wife. And I was speaking with Lillian, and she said, you know, Jerry's getting a divorce. I said, I heard. She says, you know, I told him, I can't remember, what was his girl? Phyllis. She says, I told Jerry, you're getting a divorce, but I like Phyllis, and I'm going to be friends with her.
Well, I'm sure you wouldn't mind that.
But she was mad at her sister because she was.
Circumstances were different.
Yeah, well,
He'd had an affair for years and years and years, and that's a little bit.
Why would Jerry mind?
And he finds it
She'd probably be happy. Why not?
Yeah, I would think so.
she didn't want to see them get a divorce, but if that's what they wanted, she still is going to be friends with her. That's it. That's part of our family, you see. They're not all like that.
Sorted side.
That's sort of the sort of
It's
side.
sort of. Have we talked about somebody who isn't?
And my neighbor,
This could take up days.
Oh, Petrocelli's book?
yeah, she went to have, you know, he was at he was at Century City. So, and she used to come, you know, when he was doing it. Anyway, he knew her. He says, oh, I know you. You live over here? She said, yes. And then she said to him, my neighbor is the second cousin to your wife. He said, you mean Leah and...
Did he really?
That's what she said.
I'm
You
impressed.
mean Leah and Carl?
I'm impressed.
I was impressed.
Yeah, I would be too.
Well-
That was nice. It was nice that he remembered.
Well, I think he remembered because we took Marion out for dinner, for lunch and all that. And she must have told him, because I haven't seen him in years.
Yeah.
Even if I would see him now, I don't know if he'd recognize me. But as far as the name, he knew. I was at their wedding.
Wow.
And when the children were born, I mean, it wasn't... and
It'll make us important.
I want to be friends with her.
Of course.
It doesn't make any difference to me. If that's what she wants, that's her affair, not mine.
Hi, baby.
She wanted the bowl and I wouldn't give it to her, so she sort of threw with me.
She's on her own.
Like the first time I went to one of
Not
their
yet. Life is tough.
boys' bar mitzvahs. And you know, all the women wore wigs and all that. And of course, I came in and one woman said to me, that's a lovely wig you have on.
To you.
Yeah. I said, this is not a wig. It's my hair And I said, I don't wear wigs and I don't belong to this group. I'm a
Whoa.
Jew, but that's it. No.
How'd she
listen,
take it?
I don't care.
Well, how do you think she took it?
I don't care. I respect them.
Yeah.
They have to respect me. They don't want
Of course.
to. That's too bad.
Yeah.
But you see, I'm invited to everything.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes,
right.
you are.
But I'm still myself. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
No one's going to tell me how to behave. After all, I belonged to a temple when we lived in Huntington Park. I was president of a B'nai B'rith group. I was very active in the temple. In fact, the rabbi had me one evening to approach the whatever there, and I read with the group and all that. But that didn't mean that I would frown upon other people. I never did. It's like these people who move in, I say hello to them, and you know, I'm friends with everybody. But I'm still my own.